All right, this is Senate Institutions. Today is Thursday, April 16th, 2026. And we have quite a few items. We're working on H 952, which is the capital construction bill. And first we will hear from Chad Vigor. Hope I'm saying your name correctly. If I'm not, we will fix it. Who's the executive director of Recovery House. And you've been in this committee previously. So I'll assume that you know us, unless you want to introduce ourselves. But we're kind of in a hurry, so if you know us, let's keep going.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, committee, for having me back. For the record, my name is Chad Vigé. I am the CEO of Recovery House, Inc. Coming back to talk about request for some funding related to capital improvements for our facilities. I want to walk folks back through which facilities, which programs fall under our umbrella of Recovery House, Inc. And I'd like to remind folks too that we, despite our name of being Recovery House, we don't offer recovery housing, but we specialize in inpatient substance use treatment. And we do that at 3 locations primarily. That would be Serenity House in Wallingford. That operates our highest level of care, high intensity, medically monitored withdrawal management. We operate at the Grace House and McGee House locations, both in Rutland, and those offer low intensity, clinically managed substance use inpatient treatment. Additionally, at our Grace House location, we are offering public inebriate programming as a community safety program where law enforcement interacts, and we hopefully prevent folks from having to be incarcerated. And I have great news in that we have launched a virtual public inebriate program screening program for the rest of the state as well. I will note too that our 3 residential programs, although centralized in Rutland County, do serve the entire state of Vermont. So we have clients coming to us from all over, every corner of Vermont. We've been doing this since 1972. And I think it's important to also note that our buildings have been doing their thing since the late 1800s. So we have a lot of deferred maintenance items that have been kicked down the road. And I, in my role now, am trying to pick up that can that's been kicked, and I'd like to make some repairs that are necessary so we can deliver another 50 years of service to Vermonters. We play a critical role in serving Vermont. Although we are not a state entity, 99% of our clients are on Vermont Medicaid, and we are reliant on state funding in order to operate. And with state funding, there has been very narrow margins over the years and years of loss. And these maintenance items that I'll mention in a moment are things that we've pushed to the side as we've focused on client care over the years. So my request today is for funding related to capital improvements to the amount of $220,000. Within that $220,000, we would look to repair the Serenity House attic and slate roof, renovate bathroom, cover baseboards that are in disrepair, replace some vinyl siding and windows, and hopefully get some heat efficiency. Develop more office space because we are logistically hindered by our office space situation down here. Install a generator because the Vermont winters are not so kind to our source of electricity. And when electricity goes out, I do come down to the building to install a temporary generator for the night. Working on the Grace House kitchen, replacing cabinetry, and fixing a front entrance to the McGee House that sustained damage when a vehicle, not ours, but a vehicle crashed into it some time ago. So there are some items that we'd like to tackle. I think these items are going to help us in sustaining our future and providing good care in our facilities for 50 more years.
Okay, questions?
I'm sorry, how much were you asking for?
$220,000.
And that was a laundry list of things for 220. Did you get estimates or for all of it? It didn't seem like what you asked for would cover what you just
Yeah, so I have
the money that you asked for wouldn't cover what you said you needed.
I have estimates from local contractors who are willing to do the work. And a few of these items on the list we can do in-house, but the materials cost is proven to be difficult.
Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, you've given us compelling testimony already about just how valuable what you do as your work. Can you talk more about the virtual screening program?
Absolutely. So we recently launched a virtual public inebriate screening program, which is designed to allow for public inebriate screenings to take place with law enforcement, either on scene with an individual who is intoxicated or at a barracks location, preventing those who are intoxicated from having to go to an emergency room for a screening in order to be incarcerated. So the goal is to keep intoxicated people out of jail. And right now, for most of Vermont, the process is for individuals being picked up by law enforcement to go get a screening at the local hospital and then go to the local jail for incarceration for the night until they are sober. Rutland County and Addison County are the current exceptions to that, as we've sustained our public inebriate beds throughout, and we've been offering beds in lieu of incarceration. The state has also been working on developing and implementing integrated crisis beds between DSU and DMH. And those integrated crisis beds are going to expand the safe bed capacity across the state at different agency locations, so that there's a third option when we're conducting these virtual public inebriate screenings. So in theory, any law enforcement officer in the state, and there is a little bit of a rollout at this point, but any law enforcement officer interacting with someone who's intoxicated would call us. We would conduct a virtual screening, laying eyes on the individual and assessing for medical need and mental health need. And we would refer them to either a safe bed for the time being while they're monitored and receiving some sort of referral service potentially. The hospital if their medical needs are great, and the jail if they are combative or resistant to the other options. That rollout has been a work in progress for a while, and we've been operating as it launched about a month ago.
That sounds very helpful to both the individuals and to the prisons. And I had to, first of all, I thought it might be like a computer program, but it's basically access to you and your staff. Is that a better way? Is that accurate?
Yes. So for a while now, we have been the only non-hospital entity doing these screenings for Rutland and Addison County in person. And we'll continue to do that in person in that area. Just logistically, it makes the most sense as we are very close to both the Marble Valley Correctional Facility and the hospital. But these remote areas in Vermont where law enforcement picks up someone who's intoxicated and has to drive an hour to the hospital and then potentially 2 hours to the closest correctional facility. We're going to save a lot of time for law enforcement, and we're going to save a lot of emergency room visits.
Yeah, which is hugely profitable. I mean, that's a lot of expense there. So do you charge for this?
So this is grant funded, so it's not
Okay.
fee for service.
And you must do it in the middle of the night because a lot of that stuff happens in the middle of the night.
24/7.
Okay. And do you know how many of you've done so? Like, what's I guess you said you've only rolled it out 2 months ago or so.
About a month ago, and right now we're in the phase of really getting the word out to all of law enforcement in the counties that the rollout includes, which currently is Chittenden, Lamoille, Franklin, and Grand Isle. We do plan to go over to the Northeast Kingdom very soon. I think we've done less than a handful, which we know that number is going to certainly increase. I think the yearly trend for public inebriate screenings is about 2,500 per year
For the whole day?
for the whole state.
Right. Okay. Do other folks have questions? What agency do you work with them? Is there a state agency that you work with for your operations? I'm just trying to figure out because generally in the capital bill, we don't fund private groups on their own when we go through a state agency to make that happen. But is there an agency that you work with, a state agency?
So right now it's the Department of Health Division of Substance Use Programs.
Okay. Okay.
My question, where in the county it's been?
Right. I think we have a health area.
Human services.
Yeah, human services. I mean, that's where a lot of our money is from prisons, and it does seem very relevant to prisons. All right, well, I think this is worthy of conversation. Would the committee like to have the conversation now? I think that would be better, and then we can, if we have questions for Chad. To me, the service that they provide is really valuable, and that was before we heard about this. What do you call it? The integrated crisis. No. Remote.
Virtual public inebriate
Sorry.
screening.
Oh yeah, virtual integrated screen. Is that an official term somewhere probably? But just keeping people out of emergency rooms and keeping them out of prisons is saving us money as a state. So I see a value in this.
I don't know why you talk about an ad without talking about everything at the same time.
Oh yeah. Well, when we can, but if there's anything specific that you want to know, now's the time.
I think you covered it. I mean, my
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Chad, for your work, and we'll let you know if we need any other information or if we're able to fund some.
Sounds good.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. Super. Right on. So, Laura Tradman, you would like to sit in the witness seat. So now we're looking at historic preservation. And this is something that I asked for because you'll recall, so you won't recall because you're new, but in the previous year, we increased the funding during the process for historic preservation and farm preservation grants. And to my mind, unfortunately, we had to reduce the proposed increases. And I would like to support these similar increases. And Laura is here to explain what these grants do and let us know if there is capacity and worthy projects that would be funded if we did increase the value or increase the amount.
Great, thank you. For the record, my name is Laura Richmond. I'm the State Historic Preservation Officer, and one of the many programs we oversee are building communities grants. That includes the historic preservation grants and the barn preservation grants. These used to be what the governor calls the deli grants. People just come in for this, that. So putting them all together has been really helpful because we can ensure in our office that best preservation efforts are being undertaken, our expertise, our advice, to ensure that Vermonters' money is going to the right place, and all of these buildings continue to serve us. The historic preservation grants are for municipalities and nonprofits. Was started in 1986, and since then, over $7 million have been granted to 676 community buildings. And I don't say projects because sometimes we get projects that come back to us every few years. Oftentimes, we are the last funder in to just get a project over the bump. We then maintain a 5-year easement on it. So anything that's happening to it needs to come to our office for review. I rejiggered some of the charts that we've been sharing with you over the years so that you could see the number of applications for the historic preservation grants, the amount of money that we're awarding, percentage of that that's allocated, and then how much money is remaining that's not being asked for. I would say these projects, even what we award cumulatively, are bringing in $1 million in construction, employment, economic stability for a community. And I think we could do so much more. It's really difficult to say no to some of these projects, and they keep coming back. And it's not that their projects are inappropriate or inadequate, or that their applications are put together badly, because we actually have formed with BGS and with the Arts Council that also have grants under building communities. We do a presentation to show potential funders applicants how to put together their applications. So those repeat customers that we're seeing are ones that just aren't getting funding needed. So typically we're leaving more than half of the projects on the table. And that's really unfortunate. The barn preservation grants was started in 1992. This is the oldest barn preservation program in the country and has been modeled by a number of other states. It's over $5 million that have been awarded so far. 504 projects devoted to the repair and restoration of historic agricultural buildings. These are not just barns. They could be something related to the maple industry. They could be silos, smokehouses. About 12 years ago, we saw a lot more wedding barns, event barn conversions, and those were eligible. These grants are for nonprofits, municipalities, and anyone really, a farmer. We've seen less event barns, so that I would say the vast majority, if not the majority right now, of the grants that we're awarding are for active agricultural properties. And again, I put together some of the charts so you can see, like this March, we awarded 20 projects out of 29 applications, 35% of the funding, and we left 157,000 not awarded. You'll see kind of funny numbers that go from COVID, where we had a lot of asks, And even though we got a bump up in 2022 from 250,000 to 300,000 in funding for both of these programs, we recapture money from projects that came under budget or were not able to be completed. There's required 50-50 match. And they can ask for up to $20,000 for both of these grant programs. So they're asking for 20,000, they have to put 20,000 into it, and often they're putting a lot more. Sometimes we get grants for just a few $1,000s, and sometimes we get them for $20,000. We recaptured a good bit of money. I think during COVID, people were thinking, oh, this is great, let's get this project going. And then they bit off more than they could chew. So we recaptured a little bit that we've been able to get out the door. We push out the oldest money first because we don't want to be giving it back to the legislature. Because there's always projects in need. So I'm really proud that we're able to work with the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation and our star, Caitlin Corkins, who goes and visits all of these buildings before, during, and after the projects, to really talk to people and figure out what meets the needs for them and what meets the criteria for these projects. We want to make sure that it's replacement in kind, that it ensures best uses. And again, we also work very closely with BGS and the Arts Council to make sure that something might fit their grant programs better than ours. And also per statute, you can't get a grant you can only get one grant out of the Building Communities grant. So you can't get something from BGS and Arts Council and us in the same years. So we need to share information to make sure we're giving the best to promoters.
Thank you. And I've worked for an organization that was a recipient of these grants, and Caitlin was just so helpful because there's a lot of detail because everything needs to be done according to the federal government.
We want to make sure that the
Criteria.
best preservation practices are put forward, but we also recognize these are living, breathing buildings and they need to be safe and they need to be useful. So we do sometimes take into account that windows may not be restored. It might be best to replace them, but we work to make sure it's best replacement that we can find out there.
Definitely. And great economic development strategy too.
Absolutely.
This is what people want to come to Vermont and see are these beautiful barns.
Yeah, I love to see town halls, town offices, townhouses back into use. And a perfect example in Stratford with the townhouse, they took the cupola off, put it down in the ground, restored it, and a few days later put it back up on top. The crowd that got to see it come up and down, as well as the restoration, it was really great to see these projects happening.
Yeah.
Yes. So it looks like from the charts you have to fully fund every request, it's about double what you get now for each grant. So about 600. Is that correct, or is it? If you had more, would you get more?
Yes, we could absolutely give more.
No, I mean, would you get more applications? Is what you.
I don't think so, because we didn't see a great increase when we increased it from the 250,000 to 300. We have seen increases because it was at 125 about 12 years ago, which we couldn't do anything with, really.
And the other question I had, it said that it's for municipalities, nonprofits, and then you kind of said it was for everybody.
So the historic preservation grants are for municipalities and nonprofits.
Right. But the barn is for everybody?
Barns are for everybody.
Okay, yeah, no matter what.
Yeah, we've had a neighbor who put in an application for someone that had a working farm that was just like, I just can't do this. So they put it in. And we don't have an automated system for submittals because we want to make sure it's accessible. So sometimes we get applications written on paper. We do what we can to help people.
And you said it's more than just barns,
It's agricultural buildings.
agricultural.
So what's an example? That's not a barn. Oh, like
A sugar house,
Yeah,
a silo.
Answer the questions.
Good.
I'm thinking about the Everett Mansion now, and then what exactly in the lot, so I don't think they all either fit in this, but. I don't think they-
I'm sorry, did you say
The
you're thinking
infancy.
about your mansion?
Everett Mansion.
Oh, Everett mansion, I'm sorry.
And the balloons that in, which.
I
Just see the balloons
I was like,
No, not my man.
okay.
I could be thinking about my dilapidated garage.
All right, I was just checking.
But no, there's just like a lot of smoke projects and then it's like this is.
Yeah, and I think the process you follow is really good. Because it's not a deli anymore. It's professionals of, of historic preservation.
Yeah.
And it
And,
goes to you, not to us.
This isn't the counter.
Yeah.
You're the.
Yeah.
and we're vetting each of these, so every project that gets an award is eligible for the state and national register. We vet them first.
And it's wonderful that we have all those in the state, and it's critical to protect them. Did you have something?
No, I just thought that this was today, like that to try to see if.
Absolutely.
Did right now.
Some sheep around, so.
Oh, to make it more
Well,
valuable.
Actually, that's a good question. Because that's a state building. I assume none of the state buildings would be
Not
eligible
qualified.
whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's very small money for state buildings too.
Well, it depends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
We've got our major maintenance.
yeah, you have your other line for that.
But we need to ask when
1.1 million. Yeah.
all right. So I am advocating to have some additional funding just for those two. So if anybody in the committee is looking at other funds in that area, now's the time to.
Kind of ask it this way, how underfunded is the major maintenance amount? You can answer that however you want.
It's very unfunded.
Okay, yeah, it's.
We estimate about $1.5 million each year.
Yeah.
And that's not for major projects.
Right, yeah, that's just.
That's just for annual maintenance. And as we start checking things off the list and getting ahead of them and have a stable maintenance process, it would be less.
And then are you talking about the maintenance of the historic or general?
Line
major?
37. Line 37, under section 4.
Right, major maintenance at historic sites. How is that going?
The vast majority of the money we have now for our major projects is coming from federal grants and the donations that we just got for the Darren Boyd House of $550,000. We have 5 major projects going on this summer and next year. But again, trying to get ahead of that deferred maintenance and a little bit of funding and let's just repair what we can
Right,
has caused more problems that we're trying to get ahead of.
right. We've seen the pictures of the water going where the water's not supposed to go. And then someone had a question about the Constitution House. Is that still going well?
Yes. The biggest delay, I would say, related to that is whether the building should be elevated or not, because it is in a floodway. So we've met with AMR's flood managers. We're on regular conversations weekly with FEMA. We did have, I think, like $100,000 from FEMA on that, but now we're looking for the engineer's reports on whether it should be elevated. And if it's not, then how we flood proof it. Do we infill the main block and let the rear additions flood, and how we address all of that? Because we don't want to get ahead of ourselves to fix something that then will be impacted if we're elevating.
Right. And the plans for the for this summer, for the events, are those still going forward?
We're trying. I'm not exactly sure what kind of condition it will be in. And what we're going to be doing is opening room by room in the main block.
Okay, and I think that's what you said.
Yeah.
All right, terrific. Thank you. And then actually, just one thing, I'm glad you brought up the major maintenance of historic sites. So these are items that BGS or some other state agency does. The historic preservation and barn preservation are obviously different because it's funding to the owners of private buildings. So I think they each have their area and they're both valuable. Yeah, it's a really great partnership. Do that. Okay. Anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Okay, so. 2:00. We have Joe. Inca and Terry Corzon. Which I don't know if they're coming in person or if they're,
So, sounds like you might be in the hall.
okay,
Coming to hook up.
if you don't mind.
Oh, no.
Someone's up.
They're there.
We're still live.
Or so if you're there. A little more.
Hello. How did it go?
Okay, we're live and pretty much on time, so thank you all for being here.
Did you not want me to say?
I'm looking for cookies.
Oh, yes. All right, we're live.
Yes.
This one is.
So good.
Haven't been, yeah. It is really nice after lunch.
Good.
But we called you here, asked you to be here for multiple reasons. So the next item that we're gonna discuss is the Newport Courthouse. And we have BGS and we have the court administrator. So who would like to go first to give us some information on that?
We can sit at the head of the table at the same time.
Okay,
Maybe that's the best way to
let's
do
do
this.
that.
Cookies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you
Just
got
put it
that?
in front
Please.
of them.
Everybody take two.
All right, so where,
Well, your mouths are closed.
so, wanna find the line.
Good, how are you? Good to see you, always. Such important.
Oh, right, there we are. Okay, so it's line 126. And what the House did was remove the cash funding next year. But the bonding is still there. And so that was a $750,000 reduction.
That's correct.
So we want to hear about that, but then also just generally the status of the project, how's it going?
The status of the project is somewhat up in the air because we BGS have gone out and looked had an RFP to search for land that came up with basically nothing in the downtown area where judiciary would really like to be. And during that time also, there's the name, so they did have the Newport Group. That is also working behind the scenes on what to do with a particular property in that town area. And they have talked to us about it. Also, whether we would be interested if they were be able to pull off a deal the likes of that. We have also looked at that same property. At the last time that we evaluated the receivership wanted a tremendous amount of money for it. So if we thought with the it's the rumor is that they're looking to reduce that cost, but we've been in limbo since that time. So moving forward, it looks like there's a good opportunity, whether it's on our own or working with another entity to make that particular property, or at least to evaluate that property to move forward. And these funds here and the funds that we have already been given us the past years would be enough to purchase property and also to start design. Some of the designs that we have evaluated, whether or not we're going to just use it for judiciary. We'll go back to just several years ago, what was at the original courthouse was judiciary's probation and parole and state's attorney. What we, during that phase, when we looked at things, a study that we completed is basically those three entities, although they work together, it's nice to be separate. So it's having separate entrances. So any property that we look at, we would be evaluating that also. And how to keep different entrances. So, depends on the property, whether you can have three entrances that are separated or not. So there's still that to do.
Can you go back to where you said there was an offer and it was too expensive?
The receivership on the property, or the owner of that had put a price out.
Oh, right,
And it's
so the receiver.
Yeah,
Okay,
yes, and
so that-
so it was just. Can't remember, it was close to double of what the actual appraised value was of the properties.
Okay, and so then how did you transition into now working on it?
We've been approached by this entity at a
Okay, so
Newport.
the new entity
Yeah.
is what had that. Okay, great. Just trying to get the sequence. Okay. Do you want to tee this up? I mean, I know it's been teed, but do you want to?
Adele, I think that again, I will say it on the record, as I've said, with no authority to speak about anything other than the fact, very aware of the history of and all the things that are going on. And I have, again, in the last couple of capital bills, if not 3 capital bills, have always pulled the money out of Newport because I knew that they weren't ready at this point in time. And I think that we are really close to getting something done. Again, with no authority of anything to speak about nothing. But I think that it's go time. I think that it's a great time to put some dollars into this fund, and to move forward. And I think that it's a possibility that that's going to happen.
Good. Well, that's exciting. Good for the state and good for the judiciary. So the House reduced the funding. Do you want to speak on that?
Okay,
I'd appreciate it if you would.
correct, the funds that were asked for, the governors recommend, certainly would be nice. They have reduced it, evaluating what we have. And if all worked well, starting in July to put paperwork together to start a purchase and sales, get that executed, get the design underway, we would be into the next biennium, and so we'd be asking for the additional funding then.
So you would have enough funding to do what you need to do
Yes.
in this first. Okay. Okay. So don't go away. It doesn't look like anybody has a question right now. Administrator, do you?
Thank you, Chairperson, State Court Administrator. We support the BGS request. And we agree, as Joe said, that the judiciary would prefer the downtown location for access, especially when there's a paucity of public transportation. And there are, I guess, we have submitted our business needs for the courthouse. The National Center for State Courts actually did that preparation several years ago. And as part of the RFP process, I think we've also been getting plans for that. So yeah, encouraged by Senator goals, but I get that sense as well from all who's involved.
That's great. That's exciting. And how long do you think how long of a project in time will it be?
I can't really answer that without knowing what the full scope of the project is going to be and what the property actually looks like.
Okay.
So next year I can have that.
All right. Any other questions? I mean, this is a big project. I want you to let us know
Yes,
what we need to know to support this.
right now, that's all I've got for you.
Okay, then we will be happy with that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
We'll do everything possible to expedite the process in terms of updated business needs or whatever information is needed. And really look forward to collaborating and it'll be fantastic for Orleans County to have a modern courthouse.
Definitely. and a modern courthouse that will look nice in the, because that's a really important site physically, just
Yes, yes.
aesthetically.
Right.
Yeah. Good, good. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay. So we have some other capital item actually, Joe, if you do not have information on the EV charging stations that are currently in the budget, we can say, you can leave, but if you do have information, please stay.
However, the deputy secretary, commissioner does,
Okay,
so
okay,
she's gonna
Yeah.
fill that slot.
Perfect. Okay, I just didn't know if it would be two of you or one of you.
That smile.
Okay.
Smile.
Thank you. Yes, please, Emily, thank you. And Deputy Commissioner is here.
Good afternoon, Deputy Commissioner Emily Kosicki, Department of Buildings and General Services. For the record, if you'd like, I have a slide deck that I can share, with more information about our EV charging station program.
Yes, and just for the committee's reference, there was one of the allocations that the where the money was returned back into the pot was 990,000, just below $1 million for EV chargers. And the state is working on EV chargers in different ways. And I'm in transportation, the other side. And then when I was in economic development, we worked a little bit with our chargers at ACCD. And I am aware that there's a need for EV chargers. And I had questions about why the funding was, I know why, because of the, it aged out basically. But then I wanted this committee to look at what the proposals are for that funding. Did you want to?
I just have a fundamental question.
Sure.
As to why the state is paying for EV chargers. We do not pay to build gas stations. And there's no reason that Green Mountain Power or any other company that's selling power to the public couldn't pay for these and charge and not have the state involved at all. So I don't understand why the state is paying for them.
Okay, well, I can speak to that. It's a different model. The chargers that were paid for so far by private companies it's been Tesla. And it was, in my opinion, a really good idea of them to do that. They have a huge amount of capital, they did, probably still do. Their chargers are only for their cars, and that's been a big selling point for their automobiles. The federal government is still actually paying for some chargers. The public has been paying for chargers and accepted that it would be paying for chargers because it's valuable to the state to have fewer gas cars for multiple reasons. So that's
for our gas tax and for paying for our roads.
well, that's actually, we have a bill for that we just finished. And that will charge the EV drivers. And we need to figure out ways to just have revenue from the chargers themselves. The problem with the gas tax is it's not indexed, and the revenues from the gas tax are decreasing. Even if we didn't have EVs, it would still be decreasing because of the efficiencies of gas cars. I mean, they get much more miles than they used to.
I would echo with what the Senator said. We have reducing numbers of electric vehicles and and the pressure on the charging stations aren't, anywhere near what has been, quoted. I mean, I stay at a place where there's, a charging station. And it's very rare to see people charging there, and there's 6 chargers there.
Mm.
I do echo the Senator Benson's concern about that.
We don't need to pull you into the middle of that. It's not your decision to carry out what we tell.
Old thinking. That is old thinking. That is when we had $14 billion worth of dollars that we squandered. And as far as what I'm concerned, that is old thinking as far as how to waste money.
Okay, I hear you. I have comments, but I will refrain from now. So that we can hear your presentation.
So from, just, to set the table a little bit, this amount of money is not, a BGS request for additional funding. In fact, the governor's recommend us to reallocate this funding, in that we didn't believe we'd be spending it this year, on this purpose. And just, BGS has certain responsibilities to carry forward state energy policy goals that are set by the legislature. And that includes the way that we carry that out in BGS is through our state energy management program. We have a very small energy team who focuses on things including the EV charging stations, but also efficient use of electricity and other utility costs in state buildings. So that's where we intersect with that.
I could need to
Yeah.
pull you
Oh,
right
no,
in the
it's-
middle of this.
Yeah.
No, yeah, but that's even, if that, she would say that anyway, because that's why
Yeah.
BGS is there.
Yeah, and so I think the EV charging station plays into certain targets that we're expected to meet to support legislative state energy policy goals. So with that said, I apologize that this is an old presentation from last year when I understood that the committee would like a little bit more information about our charging stations. I pulled up an old slide deck. So I'm
That's
sorry,
okay.
sorry we didn't update it.
No, you have very short notice.
Yeah, but and again, I am not the top expert on this. We have, again, our energy program manager, Brian Sewell. He's not here today, so I will do my best and follow up if there's questions that I can't answer. But just at a very high level, BGS began doing charging station installation at state facilities back prior to 2013. This really began with our fleet program. Just as a reminder, BGS manages the state fleet vehicle program. And so we actually do have a legislative requirement to have a certain portion of our vehicles in the fleet be hybrid or EV. And so thereby we had a need really to have charging stations for our electric fleet vehicles.
Manager, dude, what is that amount?
I think it's 75%. Remembering from.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's high. So most of our motor pool and fleet vehicles are hybrids. As a result. And just to share for background, that's led to some issues with our user groups who maybe are traversing, back roads to visit, think of a AHS service worker who's visiting families in their roads in the middle of winter. Sometimes they're seeking a sturdier car. So we're trying to hit the right balance with that. But right now we do have a legislative requirement to hit that target with our fleet program. So since 2018, that expanded beyond just our fleet program to charging stations that are available to state employees and in some cases to the public on state property. And again, there are other charging stations that may be administered by other parts of state government, like AOT. I'm not familiar with exactly their program and where they place them, just speaking to BGS, which were limited to state property under the jurisdiction of BGS.
Just to ask a question, I'm curious. So if we put a charging station for state employees, are they reimbursing the state for the power that they basically generate or
Yes.
from the charging station?
Yes. So we have we set a recovery rate. So if you go check out our charging stations, we have a few right here, like on Aiken Avenue. those are available in some cases to members of the public as well. You use your debit card, same thing for state employees. They don't get free use of the charging stations, and for our fleet program as well. Like you use a state purchasing card if you're on state business to use those charging stations. Yeah.
Do you get to decide what rate it is? Does the state get to decide what rate it?
We do set the rate. That is something that we develop at BGS in collaboration with the Secretary of Administration. And it is also, I'm not remembering the exact statute, but we do have direction for what that rate looks like. And it's essentially to recover our costs. It is not making a profit. We're not getting that out of it. In fact, we're just trying to make sure that we are not losing money on the electricity or the cost of operation. So we recently readjusted our rate within the last year because we found that there was a gap and we needed to increase it to make sure we were covering those electricity costs.
That's really interesting. So the state has that makes all sense, but you also have a contract with a profit company, ChargePoint. So their fee would cover their costs, obviously, but then do you put a fee on top of their fee, or?
It's a merged, it's a combination of factors. And I would love to follow up with you with an exact calculation of how we get there and a copy of our rate memo. I don't want to misspeak on exactly, what their share of the rate recovery is. But I will say again, when we look at it, it is purely to cover our contract costs to ChargePoint, as well as our electricity costs, et cetera.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
So there is a hyperlink on here, which might be hard to link into, but this has a link to our website page about state facilities, EV charging stations, as well as a link to our rate recovery memo. The next slide, locations at state facilities. 44 stations installed since 2023, and 30 of those were after 2018. Most of those are level 2 networked charging stations. So again, generally speaking, the customers for these charging stations are state employees, fleet vehicles, and then public visitors to state facilities. Someone's coming here to testify at the State House, they need to charge up. There's an opportunity to do that. So there are level 1 outlets here on Aiken Ave.
You may or may not. How is it determined where they're position, where they go?
I have that covered in the slide deck.
So once again, Joe, shut up.
No, it's okay. Yeah.
And let me get through the section and you'll find out everything. I am sorry.
No. So the next slide, this covers where we have stations now, just to get a sense of the geographic distribution. So the way that we select sites, it's a combination of factors. Sometimes it's like we can clearly identify this as high use by the public. We have a high concentration of state employees. Right here in the Capitol complex is a great example of that. We know people are visiting the State House. Members of the public are here very frequently. We have additional chargers across the street in the parking lot. So that's one we could identify. We also build it into our process for new projects. So for example, there were 2 charging stations added for the recent Windsor County Courthouse renovation project. So that's where we're doing something significant, new construction. We will look to roll that into an existing project. So the funding that we're talking about here, the line item is generally to address putting in infrastructure in existing facilities, right? It's not getting rolled into a construction project. So we do a survey of state employees. We just sent one out to all state employees within the last 2 weeks to question them about their use of EVs and whether to help identify needs for additional ones. So we put out the survey. If we get responses from a big cluster of people in a certain area that are using EVs and don't have ready access to charging stations in their workspace, that's where we would set our priorities for future stations. So that's really, and then sometimes we get outreach from a specific site. So for example, we got recent outreach one of the departments within A&R, and they have their own fleet vehicle, which is an EV, and they have some employees. So they're aware of it and they reached out to us wanting to know like what possibilities there might be. So it comes to us in a variety of ways.
And could they be non-state buildings, but like usage by state employees if they go to kind of, you know.
I mean, they could certainly do that on their own, or if they were using a fleet vehicle and needed to stop at a public charging station, you know, they can do that just like they could at a normal, at a gas station, right? BGS wouldn't use these funds to install a charging station on a non-state owned property though.
Right, so like, we were talking about that a little bit, so, the parking rides, I think there's some state parking rides and there's some state or municipal parking rides. But I believe maybe those would be with the transportation. Okay, so those would have that funding because those are popular. Right. And so what does networked mean?
Working at Joe to contract.
Those are ones that are actually connected out to the internet so that you can pay as you charge.
Oh, okay. And then are they all charge point?
I do not know.
So I can, we have only been installing a charge point for at least the last 5 years, but we do have some legacy older stations from NRG and SEMA Connect.
Oh, yeah. Well, and then Charging Point has purchased a fair amount of companies too. Okay. All right. And do you track how often those are used?
We do have the ability with the networked ones to see like usage. So like that's not something I monitor, but our energy office certainly is. Yeah,
So if you could give us that information,
sure.
if you don't mind.
Sure. And I know the question had come up, like generally, how much do they cost? For a level 2 station, the cost of installation is about 20,000 to 32,000 per station. That's all inclusive, not just the station itself, but also site work, design, permitting, all the associated costs. Something like that.
And that's by the contractor?
That does the installation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something that's coordinated through Director Aegis team in design and construction, as well as our energy office. Yeah.
And then the maintenance, I would think maintenance would be part of the charge point contract or?
Yeah, so there are annual ongoing costs. We budget $450 per year for maintenance and repairs.
And does that include just the contract services too? I mean, because they do billing and.
Doesn't include the network costs,
Okay.
which we average 221 per station.
That's per year?
Yeah.
Okay.
But so far, we've had very few expenses related to maintenance and repair. So we budget that amount based on, advice from program partners, and in consideration of the warranties that are offered by the station manufacturers. But so far, we haven't had a big need for that.
Okay.
And our assumption is that stations will last 12 years for a low cycle.
So some of these are getting there, right?
Yeah. So the next slide, here's an example of the state employee survey. This is just a snapshot. So again, we just released one. We'll be assessing the results in the coming weeks when that closes. We've done 2 previous statewide surveys in 2019 and 2023. It's again really to help us understand current and future demand by location. And then again, there is sometimes a direct connection to the energy office. So then again, we prioritize those based on where we see a demand. We take in some considerations, like if we know something about the site, for example, we wouldn't necessarily put in a brand new station here in Montpelier, knowing that there's going to be some complex reconstruction coming down the road. So I take that into account, just as well as capacity. And I'll just, we haven't gotten as many projects through the door in the last few years based on staffing constraints, both in our energy office as well as on Director Age's team. And other priorities like flood response that have come through. So that's where, you know, not as many EV charging stations might be moving forward. And that's again where we didn't see that we could necessarily spend these funds in the next fiscal year, given all of that. And we do have $500,000 left in funding through CCD to support EV charging station in the next year. So looking at it realistically, we felt that that would be sufficient for what we think we can achieve in the next year.
That's very helpful. I thought that ACCD money was for like condominiums and
No, this is allocated to BGS for states.
oh,
Yeah.
so this is just BGS, 500,000. That's interesting. Okay, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Because ACCD has a lot of programs just to help folks who don't have single family homes have charging.
They probably have that too. And then this is just a different.
The funds through ACCD are the requirement that they have those. It also has to be accessible to the public.
Okay,
So it's not behind any log gates or something like that.
right. And that's consistent with the funding that I'm aware of. So with the just multifamily housing. All right, and the east, let me just ask again, is it state sites only or other sites like
Boston
municipal
State.
sites?
For us, it's state sites only.
The ACCD
Correct.
money is
Yes.
just state owned sites?
Yes,
All right, well, that's good to know. And they have 500,000?
yes.
We have 500
You have-
left to that allocation, yes.
Okay.
And so on the last slide, and again, this was from last year, this is where we've identified some potential future sites. Again, considerations looking at what we have going on with major maintenance projects, what we think is happening for future construction. I'd add, you know, there are a few more that we could be looking at, but just by way of example, again, we try to build it into projects, major projects that we're doing. So for example, if we were, you know, full steam ahead moving forward on that Newport courthouse, or Ferry courthouse, like we would look to see if that was a viable site. And then we also look at our existing inventory.
Great. Now, what about level 3?
What I understand is that that is very expensive. And for some of our sites we're challenged, and there would be quite a bit of work that would need to happen, expensive work that would need to happen to support installation of those. So just given constraints, that's not something that we've pursued.
Okay. If you would just refresh, and maybe you already have, they're getting less expensive because there's more of them, and it's always just generally getting less expensive. And that's what the state is installing now for the public.
Yes, but the rapid charging is because you're really looking for transient folk. If we're talking about the state employees that are there all day.
That's true.
Or, you don't need the rapid charging stations.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, that is certainly part of it. I do know it's an ongoing topic of conversation.
Okay, good.
And I will follow up again with our energy office to see if that's something they've continued to look at for future installations. But certainly they're primarily designed thinking that people are going to be parked for a while.
Oh, I understand, but we also have level 1s in the parking rides, and no one ever uses them, except sometimes people who they have a camper.
It's right,
So-
because there's no charge for level 1.
Yeah.
Plug in the bottom
Right.
of a light pole.
Exactly.
Get free power.
Right.
I don't understand that one either, but
Well, do it that way. No,
No, I mean,
Yeah.
giving away the power.
oh, yeah, yeah,
That's a different issue.
right,
We've been grappling with this situation where sometimes folks will park and leave their car even after it's fully charged.
Right.
And, you know, have downtime so that it's not accessible to others. So we've looked at ways we can
Exactly.
encourage people to move, once they're fully charged.
right. And like all of those rules and processes Tesla has done it. But at very high expense. But there are ways to do it. So, all right, well, this has been very helpful. Thank you.
May I add one more
Yeah.
that just came to mind on
Yeah.
networking? That's also open to web apps. So if you're the public, you can go to an app and you can actually find out that that is a charging station that they can go to.
Perfect. And we just did a bill in transportation that includes requiring that the right or that useful information as in, is it still working? What kind of payment do you need? Because now a lot of them will take credit cards and or even the cashless or not contactless cards, as opposed to having to do an app, because that can be really annoying. So we are we're making requirements that will improve the use of the chargers, the public chargers, and the private chargers that are open to the public. Okay, good. Well, thank you. This is good. So let's take a little break. 10 minutes at the most, yes. And then we'll talk about updates to the capital plan.